Have you ever wanted to buy a gaming smartphone but haven't because of the gaming look of it or because of the top and bottom bezels above and below the display being too big? Or maybe you haven't simply because the phone itself is too big and chunky. If your answer is yes, then Team Red at RedMagic have got you covered with the all-new RedMagic 6R, which is, and I quote, supposed to be for people that don't want the look of a gaming phone but still has the specs to be one. In this extremely detailed review of the RedMagic 6R, I'll be testing out its design, display, cameras, software, gaming software, 144 frames per second gaming, benchmarks, and of course comparing it to other gaming smartphones. And now that we know that RedMagic have included absolutely everything that you need in the box, it's time to unwrap the star of the show. The RedMagic 6R comes in two color variants, that being Mercury Silver and Cosmos Black. The silver one only comes in the 12GB RAM variant, and the black one only comes in the 8GB RAM variant. The silver one that I have looks absolutely phenomenal, though very glossy on the back, not very matte-like at all. It has a couple pinstripe lines all around it, giving it a tad bit of gaming aesthetic. We have a 4200 mAh battery under the hood, and 30-watt wired charging, and of course 5G NFC, Wi-Fi 6E, and Bluetooth 5.2. We have a plastic back so that it can be more lightweight, Gorilla Glass front, and we do have an aluminum metal frame. That glossy back plastic does pick up quite a fair deal of fingerprints, so you're going to have to slap on the included cover that comes in the box on day one if you want to prevent that. We do have a dual SIM tray, though no expandable storage option. We have a USB 3.1 Type-C port, and we get that adapter in the box which converts it to a 3.5mm headphone jack, and unfortunately only one single downward firing speaker, and dual microphones, one at the bottom and one at the top. We have a volume rocker and power button on the right hand side. With that, the two Pro Shoulder Triggers 3.0 with 400Hz touch sampling rates and an 8.3 millisecond response time. These are the exact same ones that you saw on the version earlier on this year, the vanilla RedMagic 6. It doesn't have the dual feed as you see on the Lenovo device, and it doesn't have pop-up triggers like you see on the Black Shark device, but it is indented, which is great. The camera module at the back looks a hell of a lot like the ZTE Accent 30 Ultra, which is actually made by the same company, and it does protrude quite a bit on the back compared to other gaming smartphones around. Though the Lenovo a tad bigger than that of the RedMagic 6R, it does pack quite a lot more underneath that camera bump than just cameras. It has quite a fair deal of wobble when on a flat surface, and its back design does look very striking. Even though it is a gaming smartphone, it looks very low-key if you ask me. I would have preferred those stripes at the back of it not to be there. It would have been even more low-key. Nevertheless, it looks fantastic at the back, but what about the front? Well, we are welcome to a 20:9 aspect ratio 6.67-inch AMOLED display. It is Full HD Plus with 395 ppi, 10-bit color over here, 770 nits brightness, 144 Hz refresh rate, and 360 Hz touch sampling rate. The 6.7-inch display looks very fantastic in terms of color accuracy when compared to other gaming smartphones around, even its counterpart, the vanilla RedMagic 6 on the left-hand side of it. And the white balance looks great too. It is a tad brighter than its predecessor, well, not so much predecessor, but counterpart. The RedMagic 6 has 630 nits of brightness as opposed to the 770 nits on the 6R. The 6R also has minimal bezels compared to other gaming phones, much like the Black Shark 4 Pro. And of course, you have 144 Hz refresh rate here, which is one of the stars of the show here. I have recorded this footage using a professional grade 180 FPS camera, and you can see there's not a huge difference between 165 Hz on the RedMagic 6 and 144 Hz on the RedMagic 6R. If you want those numbers, of course, you're going to have to go for the regular 6, but the 6R does a fine job, and I really like those minimal bezels with the punch hole right at the top center of the screen. Of course, we have an adaptive refresh rate, or you can lock it within the developer options. We can, of course, adjust the brightness to get that wonderful bright 770 nit display. We have anti-flicker, display auto reverse, so that things pop up at the bottom of the screen instead of the top. We can adjust our colors, and of course, there is also dark mode, which you can set to come on scheduled times, and it is nice, black and deep within most apps and even third-party apps too. Of course, we also have an always-on display over here, and we can set a start and end time. There's no option to keep it always on, though it can show for 60 minutes, which I'm pretty sure you'll check your phone within every 60 minutes just to keep the tank down a bit. Well, the tank up, the drain of your battery slightly down. You can customize it a bit with photos, but not as much as we've seen on other phone software, though it does a great job and the preloaded always on displays are fantastic. I simply prefer the simplistic versions. We also have an in-display fingerprint sensor over here, which is the exact same one used under the hood of the RedMagic 6, and it is just as quick. It is slightly quicker than that of the ROG Phone 5, and the Black Shark 4 Pro actually has a physical sensor, so the RedMagic 6R is a tad quicker there too. It's pretty much on par with Lenovo's Legion Phone 2 Pro. We also have Face Unlock over here, though it uses 2D Face Unlock, so it's unsecure. The rest of these gaming devices also use 2D Face Unlock, all being unsecure, and it is pretty snappy, on par with the RedMagic 6, slightly quicker than that of the ROG Phone 5, as well as the Black Shark 4 Pro, and the Legion Phone 2 Pro has to pop up that camera, so naturally it takes a bit longer to get into the phone. We have a 16 megapixel selfie snapper in the front, which is actually upgraded from all the previous RedMagic devices, and photos come out nice, clear, and crisp with minimal edge detection when in portrait mode. This is TechNeck recording a 1080p 30 FPS video on the brand new RedMagic 6R. Let me know what you guys think of the audio and video quality when using the selfie cam on Nubia's latest gaming smartphone, the RedMagic 6R. At the back of the phone, we have an improved 64 megapixel main camera. We have an ultra wide camera, which is still at 8 megapixels, a depth sensor, which is also still at 2 megapixels, but now they've added in a macro sensor, which is the fourth camera over here. The 8 megapixel ultra wide snap with 120 degrees field of view looks pretty great. The 64 megapixel main looks fantastic. Using AI to bin it down to 4:1 pixel binning looks even better. We have 3 times digital zoom over here, not too shabby. 5 times digital zoom, still bearable. 10 times is the max zoom, though not very usable. Of course, we also have the macro sensor, which is new to the RedMagic family of devices. It does a superb job over here, though it's not exactly useful in my eyes. And then we also have the depth effect, well, the depth sensor, which does a great job using the depth effect over there. We have 8K at 30 FPS video over here, same as the vanilla RedMagic 6. It is capped at 30 FPS, looks fantastic nonetheless. We also have 4K, though it doesn't quite cap out at 60 FPS, but 56 frames per second for some strange reason. Nevertheless, it's nice and smooth, shake-free, and looking classy. And then, of course, we also have 1080p at 58 frames per second. Once again, a little bit less, very strange, but I did figure out the culprit of this, and it is the anti-shake, which we'll get to in a sec, right over here. 4K, 60 FPS now pretty much with anti-shake, or 57 with anti-shake on, though it does make a big difference. We have RedMagic OS version 4 skinned over Android 11. When it comes to software, it's pretty much as stock as Android gets on a gaming smartphone, with the addition of some useful features such as a sidebar, as well as multitasking, which we've seen before. And of course, you can lock apps as well. Multitasking works great. We do have PIP, but it is limited for only certain apps. And of course, we have fully fledged Google on this device, even with Google Assistant packed in, which is always an extra bonus. The haptics are okay. It kind of feels like a revving car with each tap rolling into the next one. Not quite as good as its predecessor, but what about the speakers? While the RedMagic 6 has a physical game space switch on the top left corner of the frame, the RedMagic 6R only houses it within the notification shade. It doesn't even have a separate app for it, though it's pretty easy to get to, and once you're in it, it's loaded with the exact same features that you've seen on previous RedMagic devices, that being the RedMagic 6 and 6 Pro, which released earlier on this year, which are a little bit more beefy than this one, but this still packs everything that you need inside of it. And of course, there are no turbo fans within this device like we've seen in every single other RedMagic device before, though there is a 4-layer liquid cooling system, which is great. We do have the game space overlay, just like I've shown you on previous RedMagic videos of mine. You can change the refresh rate on the fly, and you can put an on-screen reticle and record the last 10 seconds of your gameplay, as well as use a macro key where you can input a bunch of things and then tap one button for it to redo that in-game, which is super useful for RPG games. And you can also, of course, record 1080p 48 bits, and we have charge separation so that your phone doesn't use the battery but rather the power outlet for juice. And of course we have an FPS counter, which is something I've asked for in the past. They did bring it with the RedMagic 6 and 6 Pro. We can also use super performance mode over here, and we can use enhanced display adjustments depending on the game that you like and how you'd like it to look. And we do have a gyroscope, though it's only used in certain games, and you can use these wonderful Pro shoulder triggers 3.0 for single press, as you would usually expect. Dual operation, which is actually not supported within Genshin Impact, the game that I'm playing at the moment, but is pretty nifty to have. And then we can also hold down one of them to use it as the macro, which we recorded earlier. We can also press and lift for it to use different things. So pressing down for me sprints, and pressing or lifting up your finger jumps. We're going to be playing our first game here, which is Genshin Impact on its highest possible graphics and max frames per second. I got a minimum FPS of 40 FPS here and a max of 60 FPS, which is not too shabby since this is such a graphics intense game and is literally the benchmark for all games on any smartphone, period. Moving on to PUBG Mobile with HDR graphics and extreme FPS. I did try use a GFX tool to get it up to 90 FPS, but I couldn't get it to work. So unfortunately, no 90 FPS yet, but I'm pretty sure the game developers will get on this pretty soon and we'll be hitting a nice smooth 90 FPS going forward. Call of Duty Mobile, however, does have an option for 90 FPS, though limited at medium graphics. A phone at this caliber should be able to handle ultra graphics and 90 FPS, which it definitely would be able to, but unfortunately that's the game developers not allowing support for it, just to keep things even on the battleground, I guess, but it still did it at a silky smooth 90 FPS. Moving on to Bullet Force, which has no frames per second cap. The RedMagic 6R did it between 133 and 145 FPS, actually exceeding the frames that it's actually advertised to do, which is 144, which is fantastic. Of course, we also have Dead Trigger 2 over here, also with no FPS cap, but unfortunately the RedMagic 6R was fluctuating between 91 and 145 frames per second, though it was pretty stable most of the time. We also have Real Racing 3, which once again doesn't have a frames per second cap over here, and this was very stable, only fluctuating between 138 and 145 FPS, once again exceeding my expectations of frames per second on screen with the RedMagic 6R. But what about benchmarks? Well, all those snazzy specs, including the Snapdragon 888 chipset, will be set to the test over here, running 3 benchmarks, that being AnTuTu version 9, Geekbench version 5.4, and 3D Mark Wildlife version 2.2. We're speeding through them now. At the start, I did record the start temperature as well as the start battery percentage. We will work this out at the end of the 3 benchmarks that we're running now, and then we'll get some results after that and compare it to other devices around. Getting to that right now, it did drain by 12%, getting a 29.7 milliampere per minute reading, which is actually better than the RedMagic 6. And when it comes to temperatures, it is summer in Shanghai, guys. I did have the AC cranked up, but it is so ridiculously hot here. Added 21 degrees in Celsius, which is definitely worse than the RedMagic 6, only adding 12.8. But you got to remember the RedMagic 6 does have an active cooling fan inside of it. When it comes to AnTuTu results, the RedMagic 6R was slap bang in the middle, actually above the regular RedMagic 6 with 810,143 points. And when it comes to Geekbench 5, testing out the CPU over here, the single core clock speed was higher than the RedMagic 5S of last year, slightly lower than the RedMagic 6 of this year, but its multi-core clock score was actually worse than the predecessor RedMagic 5S. And finally, 3D Mark Wildlife, which stress tests the GPU department, and it got a score of 5620 with an average FPS of 33.7, which is not too bad considering the best one of the lot over here is only sitting at 34.6 FPS. The RedMagic 6R is certainly a unique gaming smartphone, which is masked with the look of a regular phone with all the right right things in all the right places. However, I feel that it would look even better without the subtle gaming lines and cutouts on its rear. The RedMagic 6R does have an improved main camera sensor and extra lens compared to the regular RedMagic 6, and while the main camera pictures do come out a bit better, the additional macro sensor isn't exactly needed. The R in the name of the RedMagic 6R actually stands for racing, which is certainly the case when using its snappy in-display fingerprint sensor, as well as when using its very well optimized software skin, which is shown off with its bright and vivid 6.67-inch AMOLED display, which makes things even smoother with a 144Hz refresh rate. Pair that refresh rate up with its feature-packed game space software, Pro shoulder touch triggers, liquid cooling, Snapdragon 888 chipset, LPDDR5 RAM, and UFS 3.1 storage, and you have yourself a fully fledged gaming phone that plays games like an absolute champion. But the RedMagic 6R is not alone in the gaming segment of smartphones. There's always the ROG Phone 5 and Legion Phone 2 Pro, which have slightly better build quality and performance, but are both massive and heavy devices which cost a lot more money. The Black Shark 4 Pro, on the other hand, might have pop-up triggers and look even less like a gaming phone than the 6R, but it's currently only available in China, it's heavier, it's skinned with subpar software, and once again, it's more expensive. And of course, there's the vanilla RedMagic 6, which boasts a 165Hz refresh rate, an active turbo cooling fan, a larger battery cell, and faster charging, but it looks a hell of a lot more like a gaming smartphone and costs $100 more too. If you are a power-hungry all-day gamer, then the regular RedMagic 6 is certainly for you. But if you like to stay more low-key and still game incognito, then there's no better smartphone than the RedMagic 6R.